We're gonna have right, either way.
What did you say?
All right. I said
You
we
want
got half either way you look at it.
You want my camera off or on?
I'm not gonna leave it off business.
Roger.
Really don't.
Okay. Well, Marina, everyone, I'll declare the meeting open. And we had no apologies and we had. Is it?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, we just can't see him.
No, just can't see him. He's there.
Oh, you're here. Okay, you're here. So, okay, right. Okay, good. All right. So, first, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I just had a comment in relation to that. I was an apology. I'm not noted as an apology, but I was an apology.
Okay.
Oh, it didn't say it in here. Did I miss that?
There you go.
Gosh, hold on.
Tim even seconded.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. My apologies. I don't know how I missed that. My apologies.
That's all right.
My apologies for the apology.
On the apology.
We're good. All right. Any other comments? No? Okay, I'll move that we accept those minutes. You want to second that? Yep. All those in favour say aye. Against? Okay. We have declarations of interest. Any updates on those as submitted?
Well, I had one noting for Wayne is that Sally's have dropped off on this one.
Oh. Sally's not remembered to, I remember.
Oh, she not. Oh, so she's out. Sorry, Sally.
You're not apologising a bit
I
already.
know. We're not off for a fine start, are we?
Oh, good. So we'll note that. So no changes.
Oh, Wayne's got a change from me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yes, Wayne's made a change from me.
Okay, sorry. Righty ho. So procurement policy update. We've got Amelia.
Amelia.
She's Amelia.
Saskia. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
So Amelia.
Amelia. Very excited to have Amelia join us 2 days a week in the job here with Waikiki. So I'll hand this paper over to Amelia.
Thank you. Hello, nice to meet you all. It's just a quick one, really, just to kind of give you an update to say that I'm here, I'm started in role, and work has begun to review the procurement policy and make the much needed changes to make sure that it's a valuable tool that can provide people a really simple and clear way of procuring all the services and goods that we need. So at the moment, I'm talking to key users of the policy around the organisation to understand kind of what's requiring of them and how they can see it improving. I've spoken with ELT to discuss the potential of increasing some of those thresholds for the tender process. That's currently quite a low threshold. So all those changes are currently underway and being made, and process will be that drafts will be shared with the relevant people to provide feedback and comments, and then hopefully by September we'll be able to bring the revised policy here for review and approval along with the procedures for
Great. Any questions?
Good to have you here, Amelia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome. And I saw mention in the risk management, the risk register update too, that you're taking some responsibility in that area as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
so our risk applicant.
Brilliant. That's great to have you actually. Okay. Well, no further questions. We'll just thank you. What? Beg your pardon. I was so moved that we wrote the report.
And I will second that.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favour aye. Against? Carried. Okay. Right, so scared you can't go to me, can you?
No.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so unfortunately, Christina can't be with us today. Basically, everything's going to plan with the LPP, which is good news. And of course, as we talked last time, things of course could change with elections, but we are soldiering on with our plan. So really the key thing since we last brought this to the committee is some excellent conversations with council and community boards around key priorities that they want workshopped for consideration LTP. So what Wayne's just handed out, since we sent this paper out, what we have done is included all the workshops coming up with council. So we've just popped that in there for visibility. What is still to be finalised, we just need to talk to QP about the infrastructure strategy. So that will go in there, and also policy review. But sort of the key topics are covered within that. What we're trying to do is maximise our governor's time, and Wayne has been very accommodating and trying as hard as we can to do it within a council meeting day, so it's not additional days for our elected members. So that's really my update on the LTP. Any questions?
Questions?
I'm going to be probably the most pedantic I've ever been, which is an achievement. I recognise. The second to last box, we've got hearings in quotation marks.
Oh, now, why would we put hearings? You'll recall, Tim, a conversation with our last LTP around giving our governors some advice around the hearings process, the submissions process. So what we're going to do, we're going to workshop that with you at the 28th of June meeting. We have talked to other councils and got some sort of guidance on what other councils do. Really, I think a concern around the formal process that we don't hear all the views from the community. So that's why you're still going to decide what the hearings.
I wondered what it's been defined what that hearings looks like.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that's coming up excitingly on the 28th of June.
That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Thank you.
Okay, and I suppose the big question mark for the LTP is through waters, how many treated, but there's guidance coming.
What we have got is Julie will do a workshop scheduled for an hour and a half on the 28th of June with council to start through what we know, what we've seen coming up with the budgets. The House does rise in August, so legislation is, I don't have the date.
Yeah, I imagine ROG will be providing some guidance as well, wouldn't they? Yeah.
One thing that was raised at the Zone 5 and 6 meeting with the Minister was that some councils had a preference to not run an LTP, given the uncertainty around waters, and instead use year 4. Has anything further happened with that anybody's heard about?
I haven't heard, there was nothing raised. The sector meeting was there about just boxing on with year 4.
There is the through meeting and going to sector. Hopefully with some guidance soon, but they were talking about a light touch LPP, but they hadn't landed at that time. So should be quite soon.
The other terrifying thing in that space is that there is the possibility that they can't do, if you look at the 1st of July 24, NTA is probably going to go then because nothing's changed for them. But then there's 1st of July 25, 1st of July 26, but they don't think there's capacity within MD to do everyone on those 2 dates. So some may do it in the middle of a financial year as well as in the middle of an LTP.
Yes, it'll be
Yeah, which
progressively.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I suppose you can only, well, for an LTP, you can only go one.
that's right.
So I suspect that's, you know, until you know the date of transition, you've got to assume that you want other. But hopefully some IOG guidance will.
I think their guidance might be the same madness.
Anyway.
No, it's not.
Right, okay, well, I'll move that we receive the report and notes the progress in preparation of the plan. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried.
So,
I do love that timeline, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so good.
Really good to have. some-
Really good.
Just the clarity on what's been done, what's been done. Do some.
Okay, wastewater update.
The schedule. We're cutting for a constant.
Sorry, how are you?
Yeah.
I'm sitting in for Julie today to support Philippa and Chantel. Julie tried to land twice last night at Queenstown. She's got bounced back to Christchurch. I think she stayed the night in Christchurch, flying back to Wellington, then back to Queenstown. So she's going to be a little bit late. She might connect up, I'm not sure, but that's the reason for my appearance. So Philippa is right here.
Unexpectedly efficient moving through the journeys.
So this was tabled at the council meeting on Wednesday. We'll take the report as read, and if you've got any questions for us, be happy to try and field them.
Questions, comments, yes, reason.
and under the contract arrangements, that contract with Fulton Hogan, which is due to expire on the 30th of June 24, will that come back to council before a decision is made?
Within the contract, there were 2 extensions possible. I
But before those extensions are made, will that come back to council?
don't believe so.
There would be, I believe there would be some consultation first.
Yeah.
It's got 3 one-year extensions from 2024. But yeah, there'll obviously be some consultation first.
Consultation with council or
Yes.
to council. So I'm just thinking if there's a contract in place that says those extensions are there, that was put in place through our governance team saying that's the way forward, is that a governance decision or a management decision to trigger off another year? Just something to contemplate. You don't have to sort it out now, but I know that governance would like some oversight over that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that's what I'm taking from the questions.
Okay, so perhaps if we. That's an implementation, that's a subject that goes to SMO something council.
Yes, please.
I think a discussion needs to be held about that.
Okay.
I don't think it's for us to say that because it is that, perhaps we can note that the committee thoughts and discussion should be held on that rather than say that's what should happen, because it's that in that line of, hey, if we've already said go for it, then what are we doing stepping back?
Okay, yes, some discussion on.
I'd go further. I'd go further than discussion.
Yeah.
I think that we should be saying that actually the operations side should report back to the council of what they propose to do. Other that will ensure the discussion, and whether or not we have to approve it will depend on what's already been approved. But I think it should be quite clear that there should be a report coming back so we know what's happening. And it could be just a report for our information, but at least it provides a drafting gate if we need one.
But is that report to come before it happens? So it's for noting that this is
absolutely.
done.
Yeah, I think my logic says that in the space and 3 waters at the moment, things are changing ever quickly, and it's probably a good safeguard for everybody all concerned because it's going to potentially lining up for a different entity. I think council needs to be aware of what's happening. But before it happens, and in case there is something that from a governance perspective that we may want to say, oh, we might want to rescind their resolution or change it or do something, who knows? Can't imagine we should, but I think I would have thought that would give staff some sort of level of comfort as well. security, yeah, about what they're doing, because it's a brave new world. So I would think that the message is quite clear. Patrick's got it, but I think if you're going to make any resolution here, then you say that they expect that it would be appropriate for a report to go to council before any decisions on extending contracts are made.
Well, I think at the very least, this group here should be given an idea of the risks of extending and not extending as well, so that you've got the full picture on. I mean, obviously in a contract, there should be some items of performance that they are meeting. If they're meeting those, then it's very difficult not to extend. However, you know, like I said, you'd need to have a good outlook on what the risks for and against extending are as well, which, you know, might be obvious now, but in 6 to 9 months' time won't be, you know, like Neil said, could be a brave new world. Also, there's a chance to improve performance over that period of time as well.
Okay. So our recommendation is that a report goes to council prior to
Decision.
any, yeah.
Yeah.
Renewal or extension.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, so.
I still got some questions, sorry. And these are ones that have come since the council meeting, just on a reread. So where we talk about the, on page 23, about halfway down, just above council resource, and it says about the increased audit work, and it says 1 full-time staff member. Is that for the contractor or for us? For us. And we found somebody to do that?
So we've just been interviewing for a support person this week.
Yeah.
And we'd like her to make an offer. For that.
So that's a full-time role to just manage the audit schedule for the wastewater treatment plants.
At the moment, there's a lot of manual work, and it's also to do with there's a crossover between drinking water and.
Thank you. So those other testing things, that was my next question. Is it the two things? That makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're knowing that the resources we've got now are very stretched.
Yeah.
So even if you took that out of the picture, the resources we've got are quite stretched. There's a lot of human resource capacity issues here, and we're addressing that with another administrative person, but we're always reviewing, well, Julie's always reviewing that sort of on a monthly basis, really.
That's great. I just wanted to check that not just that one bit, which was out. Beautiful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can I just ask it and it may just follow on directly from that in relation to the software solution, which I think is fantastic. Does that funding that comes for the software solution, is that including training staff, or is that additional on top of it?
That is including training. So at the moment, we're working with the software provider, and there's a whole plan in place that there's a training piece of work in there.
Yeah. The whole induction and training process incorporated into it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, coming through actually. Yeah, I had a catch up with the regional manager and the South Island manager at Fulton yesterday, and I just referenced this report with Emma Cynthia, who was aware of it. And just following on from your comments about contract renewal, I expressed the council's concern about Fulton Hogan's performance. I acknowledge that we have a role in managing the contract, but there are a number of areas where we have concerns about their actions or inactions and some of the outcomes, including business enforcement. They fully are aware of it and totally focused on it, so it's nothing really surprising to them.
That's helpful.
I'm sorry, Tim, I just want to go back to your question to make sure I was addressing the right part of your question.
Yeah.
So there is around the audit program that's been set up, there's one FTE just to cover the audits that have been put in place, and it is just wastewater.
That is just wastewater. So those tests around aluminium and so forth, where we haven't got the automated system in place yet, that's extra to that.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. So walk me through what a day will look like for that person, because that seems to be I mean, are they going to all the plants? And yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so at the
We've got
moment,
9 of them, so
split amongst the operations team.
yeah.
And they have a schedule that they, each month that they attend across that month, every wastewater and drinking water treatment plant to be fair, and every pump station, to get it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so it is water treatment plants as well.
yeah.
Okay, so
They're
waste,
talking pump stations, wastewater treatment plants, water treatment plants.
Yeah. And very hands-on, actually out on the road,
Well,
around 10,000 square kilometres visiting a.
I think we've learned we've had to be take a lot more ownership from that perspective.
I think that's
And
great.
without second guessing what was said to Louise yesterday, I know that, Fulton Hogan have recently got a chap from Melbourne River who's running the new Lake Dunstan water supply
Mhm.
treatment plant, who's an expert with membrane plants and, you know, top-notch operator. They've had a dedicated operator at Alexander Wastewater Treatment Plant for 5 weeks now. Who's really taken ownership there, and I was up there yesterday, and the improvement was night and day to when I visited it probably 3 months ago. So there are some improvements happening, but you know, there's 2 sides of the coin. They need to do what's they're contracted to do. We also need to back things up by building confidence in what's happening out there by actually going and looking and seeing for ourselves.
Yeah.
Great.
And recording it and reporting it.
Thank you.
Really happy to hear that.
Yep,
Thank
me
you.
too.
okay, so I will move that we note the report and that recommendation that I've repeated again.
And that's second.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Yes, right. Thank you. Sounds like there's been quite a step change in things.
Well, yeah, I mean, the big
Okay.
change happens incrementally, really, doesn't it, over a long period of time? And I want to know why you're asking so many questions while Julie's not here as well. I'm gonna talk to her about it.
This is all in risk, mate. It's everyone's favourite committee.
Yeah.
Okay, update on Three Waters work programme. Oh God, that's my phone, sorry, that's been too long.
I'm just shouting.
So the report is read, but I'll just cover off a few of the key points. It's not a huge amount to update this month, but obviously the Cromwell Rising Main and Roxburgh Wastewater Treatment Plant sludge removal have slightly moved back on our estimated tender dates. The main reason for the Rising Main is obviously we've got some design orals that are just taking a little bit longer than we were expecting.
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit more there. Basically, we've done modelling of the gross statistics for the whole region and everything, and what peak numbers look like, and how all the way down to how many people might be in a household during peak season, all that. And it can actually refine it quite a bit, and then you add different plan change elements, and it all comes down to what's the maximum water usage going to be in about 2054 or whatever it is, and what's the size of the pipe that that's going to take. Now, we landed on a pipe size, but now we're just a bit concerned that we might have undercooked that. So I'm sort of going back to the well again and just making sure that we're getting that right, so that in 10 years' time, we're not replacing a brand new pipe. And it affects, because we're doing the water treatment plant and the bore fields, as other projects off the end of that, once that line's done, the size of the pipe affects the pump sizes of the bores. It can affect the size of the treatment plant and all that. So we just need to be really careful. I don't, you know, hope you don't mind if we're running a bit late, but I'd rather run a bit late and get it as right as possible than roar in there and just get it tendered and we build a pipe and 10 years later, people are saying, well, why don't we put a larger one in?
So that population analysis is work that feeds into other projects, so it's worth getting
Yeah,
that
definitely.
comfort around it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think with Cromwell's being the way it has been, we're obviously a little bit more cautious as well to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
Julie's online now, she's got any questions.
Oh, Julie's come in for quick. She can give us answers to questions. Hi, Julie.
Hi, sorry, I'm sitting in a lounge in an airport. So
We've heard you've had some travel challenges.
yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're just up to the update on the works program. So just hearing a little bit of delay and making just the right sizing things.
Yeah, and look, I've just been listening to what the staff have been saying, and they've covered that off really well. So
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
So the only other thing, obviously, we're a bit concerned with the timing and the continuous monitoring devices because the material lead time we've had an indication can be anywhere between 1 and 2 years, which is a very long time to wait for those devices. So we're just looking at a few different options there around procurement, whether tendering is actually the best option, whether it might be better we purchase direct or other.
Yeah, I think it's the best approach, and I've gone over with Julie, is to try and stage this work so that we know, get a really good detail on the materials and items we need for that work, get it ordered, council order it direct or through the contractor, have that program sitting. We know it'll take, like you said, 9 to 12 months for that to arrive. During that period, we do a stage 2 of work, which is preliminary work to get it ready so that when it arrives, everything's ready to go and we can put it in. The third stage is getting the right contractors to install that equipment. So rather than going, oh, let's put a tender out and do everything, then we're waiting on the contractor. You know, we just think we're better staging it ourselves and being a bit more assertive in getting the materials and everything ourselves.
Can I just ask, in relation to those devices, is there any way that we could work in with other councils that are going through the same thing? Would that speed anything up if we were to be looking at something, dare I say it, in bulk?
Julie, you know.
yeah, what I would say there is that that's actually part of the problem. Every council in New Zealand is trying to do this at exactly the same time. There is another complication too, because these devices record information and then transmit it back to our SCADA server. And we're actually going to need to do quite a significant upgrade of the SCADA to pick up all the new requirements that are being implemented, and every council is also grappling with that because no one wants to go ahead and do big upgrades when we're kind of in this uncertain time around transition, because how the new entity wants to set their SCADA systems up could be quite different to how we all do it individually. So it's a really complex project, and we could spend money and get it wrong. So it's trying to get all the ducks in a row. And I'm actually working in with the Dunedin City Council, talking with them around how we deal with the operating technology end of it, because what we've found with some other jobs we've done is we get the devices in, we can record the information, but then we can't get access to the information the way we need to because of the technology at the other end.
Yeah. And in terms of ordering materials, we've found it was like the IO cards for the water treatment plant and the reservoirs, that you've just got to get in there and get in as soon as possible and get in the queue.
Yeah.
And if you hang around, I want to work with others, but the reality is if you hang around and wait for, oh, it's the need in Queenstown, that sometimes you just get in this big waiting, holding pattern, like a plane circling the airport. But then you're better to just know what you need, find out what the price is, lock in the price, which is critical as well, because the longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to be. And then you know, you've got an idea of when it's arrived and you can plan your work to match with it. Otherwise, you can just be sort of stalled for quite a while.
And are these domestic supply kits or are they?
It's a mixture of both, yeah.
I've just never seen a foreign exchange policy or what you do that's foreign currency priced. Is that all done at the same time or hedged?
All large enough materials all as it is, but yeah.
So there is a policy around what you need to do, what large enough is defined in the dollar amount, or is it just sort of up to good judgment or?
No, we don't have a policy. These are the material component of this is is not huge, Linda. We're probably talking a couple of $100,000. It's about the same amount to install it. It's about
Yeah.
$600,000 all up. But, definitely when we were looking at buying the membranes for the Lake Dunstan water supply, we were working with international suppliers then, and we don't have a policy around about international exchange rates or how we manage those, but we did probably have a bit of a win with the membranes because we were in at the right time. They've certainly gone up a lot between ordering them and having them delivered.
Yeah, okay, it might be something, I mean, because I applaud you, I think you're absolutely right, go direct, get them, but it does open up a little bit there of just not necessarily providing anyone with the right guidance on if it's over a certain amount, it's got to be hedged and locked in. So it might be just thinking.
It puts you guys at risk, eh?
Well, yeah, because you could say, someone might think it's anything over 50,000 should be hedged, and you're thinking over 200. And it's just getting that threshold sort of agreed. So perhaps that's just a recommendation for management. It could be incorporated within the procurement policy. Because that's what was going to happen. Perhaps circle back around and just put a section in there. Oh, no, it's still here. There we go. Look for a minute. Okay.
You stand in the room for the extra jobs.
Some other councils must have that sort
I assume so. I hope so. Yeah. Okay.
So the only other thing, obviously, we've had 2 tenders go out. So the generator's actually closed on the and we got 3 conforming tenders and 5 in total, but 3 conforming. And the water pipe renewals closed on the 26th of April, and we got 8 tenders for that, which is pretty close to award now.
Yes.
And as you're probably, if you've read the report, you'll see we had a bit of a hiccup where 5 of those were not picked up. So we just had to rerun with a full new tender evaluation team. But in the end, got there.
And I just wondered, has that look been closed for future of new staff or people who aren't familiar with the system coming in?
It has. I've actually discussed it with them earlier too, and I think once again, and this is my view, is that some of it is because of the resourcing we've got around it as well.
Yeah.
The person that was our tender secretary is a lady that's on here on maternity leave. It was her first real attempt at it, and we were working with someone in the finance area that weren't overly experienced in it either. So it was a combination of that, which is unfortunate. But I believe those people know what they're doing now because they've had to go through the experience of it. But
and they'll never forget. But it does start. We're just discussing it. It's a pre-meeting. It's sort of I've seen it in other companies as well. It's the impact of churn starting to be manifested, and when you don't have documented procedures, so that someone is sitting in and doing the job for the first time, a bit of a checklist and those sorts of things. That's just evidence of that.
Definitely a gap because Gabby, our previous manager, used to oversee it. So the member of the finance team that they were dealing with are purely administrative and just puts them on the system. So yes, unfortunately that did happen, but we'll be for it now. We're going to get better processes around that.
Any more questions? Good update, thank you. Okay, so I will recommend the report be received, and we've just got that recommendation to look at foreign exchange into the procurement process. Seconded, thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, please. Thanks, Julie. Are you closing off now and then going to be here in person later, or what are you going to do?
Well, no, I've been flying from Christchurch to Wellington to fly back to Queenstown, so I'm in Wellington at the moment, so I'm not going to be back for a bit. Sorry.
I thought you were in Queenstown, but just not here. Okay.
No, I was meant to be in Queenstown last night.
Right. Well, okay.
So there's a flying in winter.
Fun. Good morning,
So,
everyone.
sorry, I will have to leave soon because I've got to catch my flight back. But I think Patrick's going to sit in with Philippa when her report comes up.
Cool, okay. Anything you want to just raise with us, perhaps while we've got you?
Not really, unless there was some specific questions, but
Okay.
I'm sure Philippa and Patrick will cope.
Oh, yeah, right, that's good. It's
Patrick's
just
loving
more for you, if there's anything you wanted to make sure we're aware of. Okay, cool. All right, thanks, Julie.
Thanks, bye.
Health and safety.
Good morning, everyone. I'll take the reporter's lead. Just a quick update from me. We had the review from CODC Audit that happened in March, and it really reflected where we were at on our journey, which was pleasing in a way. We came out with 12 high priority recommendations, and that will really steer where we're going with that action plan with the work program. A little bit of an update around recruitment. So I'm still out to add to find a replacement for Rachel. And I did have somebody, and that fell through. Few challenges around remuneration and affordability. So we'll see where I'm in. That closes on Tuesday. And I've had a couple of people that have got the skill set that might be good. So hopefully, cross fingers. I wanted to point out Rachel was announced as a finalist for Emerging Practitioner, and the results come out on the 20th of June, so that's pretty exciting. I happened to talk to her yesterday. She's in Dublin, and she's doing really well. So hopefully, fingers crossed for her. And just a little bit around wellness. We had a really great pink shirt day this month, and some was heard by all. We managed to get out to our off-sites and deliver some pink treats, and it was a great cause to get behind. And we've also got the mid-year event happening soon with staff in July. So that's always really good to give them an update and have a little bit of fun for a half day. Are there any questions?
I did have one, sorry, Tony.
I've got two questions, please. The first one, what is it with Cromwell Pool compared to Alex Pool? It said the vast majority of the incidents that form part of this report are from Cromwell Pool specifically, which I think might have been the case last time as well. It was higher from Cromwell Pool. Is the floor more slippery? Are people, I don't know.
When people are using it, maybe.
I don't know.
People must check the ratio.
It does have a slightly higher usage, probably maybe 20% higher, I would say, than Alex.
Yeah.
There are some slightly different operating systems between the two pools as well. So that is a fact, and they will be aligned over the next couple of months to be separate operating systems. So that could be something as well. Yeah.
I thought I was going to have a wee look at it.
And the number from our special.
Yeah, just check, sort of put some ratio lens over it and see whether it's more incidents because of more people or.
And it'd be just the fact that there's more people. It is quite a busy pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something like 9 in Cromwell compared to 1 in Alex or something like that. I was just getting it through to see if I could find it, which seems
Way out of whack.
Way out of whack. But anyway, if you could have a look. And then the other question I had was just around the EAP stuff. Because I thought it was really interesting that stress, workloads and finance are missing from that list.
What I did find pleasing about it was that career development and communication and relationships, because that is something that we're really trying to focus on via engagement survey and also with the work program that we're doing. We're doing a lot of communication with the team to find out, how they like to be communicated in relationships, and also looking at the training of our leaders and how they communicate and how they're leading their team, because that all starts to reflect down on how you're actually managing a team and using the one-to-ones and IDPs and actually creating that learning environment for people.
Does it feel for you like we're landing in the right place on the career development and how that's being sold to staff, if it's to the point where they're ringing EAP and saying that's their number 2 priority, which I would be a bit concerning?
It is concerning. I'm not saying it's not concerning, but learning developments are one of the next big projects on our work program. And that's actually quite a big project to land. And it's about identifying what planning and what development that we need to give people. And if I can take us back to the remuneration project, within that remuneration project, we managed to create all of those supporting documents, which were one-to-ones and IDPs. And so we're getting managers to get into the rhythm of having those conversations, which include the elements of career development and individual development plans, and making sure that we're actually focusing on it and what's important to them, what they do actually want to learn, need to learn, and what their next steps are. So I would say, even though it is concern, it's in line with where we're at. And the next phase of that is working on a learning and development project. And that will allow us to identify those key programs and training that we want to have within our organisation. So it's step by step. So yes, I see your point, but but we've got all of this work program in the background to try and strengthen it.
Yeah. The BWare, when will that data all be fully transferred over, that BWare program?
It's been done.
It's been done.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I missed that from there.
And Rachel's in the background finalising some of that stuff for me. So that was done probably about 2 or 3 days before she finished.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing, just right at the end of the report, you talk about my everyday wellbeing. Obviously that's a really great start. Are we going to try and up those percentages? Is there stuff that you're doing to make sure that those percentages are increasing as part of your?
It's one of the tools that we use.
Yeah.
And what I'd say to that is right now in the background, we're building our people and culture strategy, which we're trying to make very in line with our work program. And that includes discussing more wellbeing activities that we can do within the organisation. And one thing that Kirsten and I have been looking into at the moment is what are our current trends, because there's quite a lot of pressure on people, i.e. financial pressure and so forth. And so it's about making sure that what we are delivering will be able to be and being what's important. And so we will continue to focus on that, but we might include more tools in the wellbeing area.
Yes, just in terms of the violent or aggressive behaviour, you say it continues to be underreported. If it's not reported, how do we know it's underreported? How do you know what you don't know?
Through conversations, Tim.
Yeah.
So connecting with the team and what we find is a lot of times they may mention,
Yeah.
oh, hey, I had, a customer that came in that was, a little bit aggressive. And our next question from that is normally, did you report it?
Yeah.
And that's how we're finding out
Yeah,
about that. And we're trying to encourage and promote people to do that.
Is part of that a higher threshold of tolerance than should be tolerated? Like people will go, oh, well, this is just part of life, I've got to wear this, whereas no.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The collective ELT has sort of been trying to promote that as well. So they feel supported, we'll come out and, and I think David's been a big catalyst that are coming out and actually saying, I can take over if it need be, you don't have to put up with that behaviour. And one of the things that we're looking into at the moment is the right to de-escalation training for everybody. So they can feel confident in a handling a situation like that.
So
it is about us asking them.
So we can expect to see maybe the next report a significant jump in aggressive behaviour, but we need to not react because it's a catch up.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Cool.
And it makes them feel more comfortable when you say, hey, please report it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because that's the way that we can review and see what other systems that we may have to put in place.
Yeah.
And going back to our review that we just had in March, one of the key focus for me is strengthening whatever, health safety management systems that we've got in place, and keep building on it. And that's one of them.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lee.
Great. Good discussion. Any more questions?
Oh, just the only comment was that I love the idea of using the wristbands in the pool to identify kids that might need a bit more
Totally. Yeah.
visibility. So there was a really sensible, practical idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was.
That trend of people, and I think we've discussed this before, and I've seen it in library environments as well, like, oh cool, I'll just go pop the kids here and I'll go away. There was definitely a bit, you know, a trend of that happening. And it's happened for quite a few years, so I think
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
And it also sort of sets the precedence of saying, hey, you can't just drop the child off and not worry about it.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Yeah. Quite powerful forward.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, thank you. I will move that the report be received. Second, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what are we up to now? Financial report. Donna, hello. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say, I really like that critical risk. The critical risk report too. That was really well.
It was good.
Yeah. So. Hello.
Thank you. So I think the paper is being read. So for the financial period in March 2023, there was an overall favourable operating variance of 3.8 million. The favourable operating income variance has a 6.1 million variance. This is driven by development contributions and land sales. So the land sales have come through from stage 3 of the Dunstan Park. And I think we've only got one more lot of subdivisions come through for the rest of the remaining year, and that's Cemetery Road. So offsetting this is the Waka Kotaki subsidies of 730,000 and the water meter sales of 771,000 dollars. The Waka Kotaki subsidies fluctuate with our work program, and our metered water sales, this is just due to the timing of our second lead round every 6 months. Looking into the future for that one, we're hoping to get the budget more aligned with the water rates to alleviate this big variance that keeps coming through. The unfavourable operating expenditure variance is 2.2 million. This continues to be driven by the depreciation variance of 4.6 million. The other unfavourable areas to note include contracts. This continues to be driven by the emergency works carried out at the Onakau wastewater treatment plant, and also an increase in the water sampling costs and service request and reactive repairs being carried out. Grants also has the unfavourable variance, but this is mainly due to the Rockford full grant of $500,000. And we've got cost of sales coming through with a favourable variance of 727, and this is linked with Dunstan Park subdivision costs. There are still some costs to come in, but most have been allocated through with that stage 3. Capital expenditure has a total of 34% of the full year's revised capital budget being expensed. There is a mixture of statuses for these projects, including timing of project budgets, the work program, contractor availability, design, investigation and planning. Accounts receivable has an outstanding balance of $402,000. This is predominantly just timing of the Waka Kotaki subsidies, and there is 55,000 of outstanding accounts receivable greater than 90 days. So this has nearly reduced in half from the previous quarter. So we're looking pretty good to finish the financial year. So at the moment we have no term deposits. We're still managing our projects through cash flows to reduce the impact on external borrowing and the interest that is incurred through that.
External debt as at March 2023, council has uplifted $20 million of the planned 47.7 million in the annual plan. So we're still sitting about halfway between nothing. Internal loans has a forecast closing balance of 4.1 million for 30 June. External loans are tracking through. They have an opening balance of 143,000 for this financial year, and as of March, have an outstanding balance of $90,000. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Let's open up for questions.
Yeah, just when we're talking about the variances, and it's really helpful having all those explanations, so thank you for that. The only thing, and I don't know whether this is possible, some of the explanations give us a timing, like a rough timing idea.
Yeah.
It's really helpful to know when we're looking at that, because I understand a lot of things are timing, but if we knew that the timing there was going to be either completed, or we would have a better estimation of when that's going to be completed by. And that, I don't know whether is that going too far? What's your thoughts on that?
For the capital or for the operating expenditure?
Probably the operating expenditure. I mean, I fully understand that it is a timing matter.
Yeah, so what we have had the issue with in the last year is being able to maintain the budgets as more of a cash outflow. There's budgets being spread over a monthly period of time, so we sort of bring to you the main ones which are coming through as issues. I think we're making a few predictions within our modelling system which will allow us to actually do that a bit easier than to fold into that monthly. And then something that we would, as other managers, would like to bring through as well.
Quite a seasonality.
Yeah.
To it.
Yeah, all work program. So
Yeah.
we've been approached by Roading in particular, and they had they're wanting to show their budgets based on their workload, and it's something that we're wanting to work with them in the next year. So, and that's one big one that sort of affects the subsidy as well. Yeah.
I have one question, kind of for you, possibly for Linda. Depreciation. Is anybody doing things differently, or it is what it is and we just have to carry on down that path?
Well, yes, it is. Well, it is what it is, and the question is funding the depreciation.
Yeah. So I think that because a lot of councils have been hit with a large increase to their depreciation, they are assessing their own funding of the depreciation, and this result. So this council in particular, we've decided to fund the depreciation for the roading program and also for the renewal program of the city waters. We also don't fully fund our buildings, particularly our smaller halls, but we do fully fund parks, for instance, and calls, and our waste management as well. So it does come down to what you're wanting to fund as part of and in alignment with your capital program.
And I think quite a good conversation we had when we discussed the payment expenditures for LTP.
Yeah.
How we're going to manage that ongoing.
Yeah, because obviously fully funding depreciation and heightened depreciation means.
But not funding it means tomorrow's paying for today. To an extent.
Yeah, typically fund it. Yeah, fund it. It means not complying with yeah.
But of course, of course, that has to be weighed up with the fact that if today's already paid for it, then they probably shouldn't have to fund the depreciation on it, because then they're paying twice. I just got a couple of clarifications, if I could, please. Just in terms of our reserves table in the appendix, am I right to assume that when I look at the Cromwell Ward Services, the Cromwell Ward Services rate that's got a balance of 18 million, is that the reserve account that the funds go into from land sales and those sort of things? Is that where that bucket they end up in?
I believe so.
And then so I guess what it is, it's sort of, you look at that, and if you were to take out the infrastructure ones that are in deficit by quite a bit, then obviously a lot of those internal buckets, if you like, are being used to, the cash is being used elsewhere. So I'm assuming that those buckets are picking up an interest payment for their funds being used elsewhere. Is that how it works, or is it not quite as simple as that?
No, it is as simple as that. So if your reserve is in surplus, it does gather interest revenue. And if it's in deficit, it pays the expense side to those.
Yep. Okay, and that expense sizing goes back to the one that where the money come from. So I have got one question though. I'm just interested to find out. I know we get a lot of reserve contributions as a result of subdivisions and stuff. And it's not something I expect the answer for today, but just to confirm which bucket that goes into, whether it goes into the ward services bucket, because I always thought we refer to a reserves contribution account. So maybe our bucket names might be more than just, maybe the reserves contribution money goes into the ward services bucket. But yeah, so it's just something to raise and something to think about for the future about whether our bucket names are right. Thank you.
Perhaps it might just be a consistency thing, slightly different label, but meaning the same thing in different reports.
Yeah, and I think it's about us understanding just how it all works, and I think trying to get the understanding of the big picture, because finance reports are not simple. Most people struggle with their own bank accounts, let alone something as complex as this.
Yeah. If I could comment on the development contributions, are quite complicated because they are related to different work programs. So when we have the capital programs, that's how the development contributions are worked out. And so when they are received, they go into a range of buckets. But I can take that for a later day. It was quite interesting.
Sorry, one's just occurred to me, otherwise I would have had it in better form, but I'm looking at Mania Toto, and isn't there sort of 2 million outstanding to the hospital? And I know that was partially funded through the use of land, not the sale of land, but I would have thought I'd have seen quite a deficit there under the Mania Toto community.
So the internal loans or the external loans are generally funded through a slightly different mechanism. So, and they will, if you turn to page 61, the internal loans.
Yeah. There it is there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that sits on our balance sheet as a term liability.
Yeah.
So it draws down on another reserve account, which is my head, I can't tell you which reserve account it's drawing down on. So it just sort of doesn't sit there as a negative in the reserve accounts. It sits as
so just to help
item on the internal loans register.
Okay. To help my understanding a little bit more, now you've drawn me into this rabbit hole. I was going to ask, because I was aware there were 3 Alex Town Centre debts which are in the internal loans, which are in that table on page 61.
Actually, that probably should take through even more.
Because when I look down at the 10.
That I don't believe that's correct. I think that's a weak error. So I might send through an updated internal loans. So I believe we only have 1 town centre loan.
Yeah, that's the 109,815 from 91.
And I'll send that through and get it.
It'll be good
Updated.
because those numbers don't add up. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just had one question, and this is back to page 53, just in the financials. So when I first looked at it, I couldn't understand why government grants and land sales are both noted as red when they're both, noted as favourable.
That's
and are favourable, I would have thought.
I think grants, yeah, so there might be a wee bit of an issue there if we both don't.
Oh, it was missed in the coding.
Yeah.
I'm not missing some sort of other issue.
No. What's in the various column is very much coding, though it is quite nice to see traffic lights There might be something in the formula that says that it's really high, but then I was just looking at the development contributions and on screen, so.
Yeah, I just couldn't see what it might be, but so I thought, well, the simplest answer is often the right one, and it's just wrong. Right, any further questions or discussion? No? Alrighty, well, I will move that we receive the report. Is going to second that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Aye, thank you. Excellent, thank you. Thanks very much. Right, and internal Audit New Zealand and internal updates this year.
Great, excellent. We'll take this paper as read. We have, as requested at the last meeting, we have taken this to council, so they received this on Wednesday. At that meeting, we did point out that the two new recommendations that have gone on with this report. There's in the work program is to deal with the project equipment, and Donna can talk into the detail around that. In regard to the second recommendation around the interest register, we have a good process when staff start in the organisation, but of course things change over time. So Louise Fleck and I have met to discuss a better internal process for a yearly review of that. So we're getting that underway. So I just want to give the committee assurance that both of those new recommendations we're actively working on them. Great.
So because that flows through obviously into procurement.
Yeah,
as well.
It does. Yes. And I'll just hand it over to Donna to make some comments on outstanding actions and where we're at with those.
So most of the finance action points all relate to assets or property, plant and equipment. It's certainly something that I've been enhancing over the last 2 years, but it's still very much a work in progress. So point 1 discusses the revaluation of assets in an asset class and ensuring that they're all revalued at the same time. We're now putting into a process that when we do revalue a place, we look at the entire asset base and we review every single line item and assess whether it's still relevant for the current space or whether it needs to be moved into another category. Point 3 also talks about the transfer and cash flow completed work in progress. So processes have been updated to include monthly and detailed quarterly reviews of vouchers held in work in progress. The main concern with audit is how long the transactions are being held in work in progress. So we're working with the managers and budget holders to ensure that we are maintaining those transactions and that they are still actually projects which are work in progress, rather than something that's just waiting for a couple of final invoices when we're using it.
So would the expectation be that for this year end, that order of action would be closed off and confirmed by Audit New Zealand?
We would hope so, but it's always an area where it's a bit grey between what actually happens within the business and audit expectations. So we might, for instance, the Lake Dunstan water supply. It's been a very long process and it's been sitting in work in progress for quite a few years, and we're only commissioned in May. So that will be capitalised throughout this year, but they'll possibly look at the transactions and how old they are as part of the review of that capitalisation. And they might be looking at why we didn't capitalise in stages rather than when we be commissioned. So yeah. So from our point of view, we normally capitalise on commission, which is when we're actively using.
That's the policy and that's the procedure. So
yeah. So there is a little bit of grey between them, but it keeps us informed with what they're thinking, and also helps us enhance our processes each year. So point 4 is a review of our depreciation policy. This work is still ongoing. It's quite a manual process in trying to fix, as it's something that's been happening over many years. So we've identified that we have quite a few assets that have 0 depreciation rates, but they still hold a value of some form in our asset register.
So what we have to do is, generally it's because they've been revalued as part of a bigger asset, rather than a small asset. So we need to transfer the value from one asset to the other asset. Because it's zero on one side, but it's got a value on another side, and just net those assets off and dispose of them. So that's the biggest issue. And it's been happening for a very, very long time. So, and it could be recapitalised Toby's, one I came across this morning, an only cow, back in 2013. And that's been revalued as a connection point in our main water assets. So we'll still need to dispose of that asset, but it's been valued as part of another asset. So we just have to be careful that we don't disturb the asset base itself.
Any questions, comments?
I just said one, because it wasn't that clear, and that was 5.2, council are not included in registering. But then the management comment is, no, that's not the case. So I just wondered what they.
That was quite a confusing point. So there was some back and forth on this because of course our audit ran really late last time, and it was post the election period. So there was some debate around the councils that should be on that. And in terms of management's perspective on that, given the change in legislation now, when your interests are now required to be displayed publicly, we're hoping we're going to close that off with this audit.
So that was, they picked up it was Stephen and not Sally top.
Yeah.
But the timing of the
timing
elections.
Yeah. Is it all about me?
No. That was just my example.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, I will move that we'll receive the audit report. Second, thank you. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Liability policy. Welcome, Miles.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to introduce Miles O'Connor for those that haven't met Miles. Miles is one of our very helpful friends. He's our treasury consultant. So we talk frequently, don't we, Miles? So I'll say a few words here because the reason the paper is here today is Miles alerted us to the fact that our current policy doesn't actually enable him to give us the best advice. There's some technical areas that Miles can explain much better than me, so I'll make a few comments and then Miles, you may have a couple of additional comments to make. So as the paper outlines, we were very diligent and acted on some Department of Internal Affairs advice last year. And we followed that advice when many other councils didn't. And essentially what that advice from DIA was not to lock in lending beyond the 1st of July 2024 with the 3 years debt. DIA subsequently amended that advice, but we had gone ahead and changed our policy. So what the challenge is when Miles has given us advice, given our debt is Three Waters debt, the way our policy is currently worded, it means it's all on floating. So we're not getting the best interest rates for our rate payments. So that's my main comment there. And talking to Madam Chair around the quarterly reporting, Miles has maybe we'll take some questions on the policy and then we'll turn to the quarterly reporting, because now that we have got debt, we do need to get some quarterly reporting going. But in terms of the policy changes, Miles, do you have anything to add before we open up the questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nice to be here again. As Saskia said, it was a slightly unusual email from DIA, just saying that if there was going to be any debt that was associated with Three Waters, then that it could not be taken out beyond 1 July 24, and also that you had to notify DIA of that debt that was going to be taken out. And Central Otago, as Saskia said, the predecessor was diligent and took notice of that. Quite a few councils didn't, but CODC did, and so decided to change the policy. Now that email has since been discredited. I had a meeting last year with DIA and brought it up, because it was in, I think, early in the year, last year, when it was brought up. I brought it up with him and he just looked at it and just said, I don't know anything about this. This was someone else in DIA, and he was quite taken aback by it, actually. So it's since been it's since been revoked, and they said, no, you don't have to take any notice of that. That is not the case. And subsequently to that, anyway, Three Waters has been changed, and the inception date for it has been pushed back from 1 July 24 into the A, I think, in Auckland. The Auckland one is going to be going on 1 July 24, but it's going to be sometime between 1 July 25 and 1 July 26 when the new entities. Have you been given any indication when you might be adopting it? No.
We're hopeful 1st July 25, and when I say we're in Otago Southland, but what does that mean? I mean,
and there's an election.
There's an election. We don't know if we'll be ready to do it. We don't know if we'll be allowed to do it by DIA. What we're primarily focusing on is not trying to do it in the middle of the financial year. So there's only limited spots at the end of financial years. We're trying to aim for one of those so that we secure one of them. But look, it's a mess.
I was speaking to him yesterday, and was it yesterday, the day before, the person from DIA who's running the debt side of it, and he said, well, we haven't actually totally decided what the debt will be. I mean, this is 8 billion of debt, and they don't know what it will actually be yet. Although he sort of hinted that there might be an announcement coming soon. I don't know if you've read anything more, Madam Chair.
No, we don't. Wait until we don't listen to the promises or expectations. Wait until
well, I mean, it's just been so much disinformation, or misinformation,
or statements of best intent, and then they don't meet those. So
So anyway, as far as you're concerned, I pointed out Saskia when I was here about 3 months ago, and so as a result, the policy's changed. So your debt you've got one tranche of debt that goes to 1 July 24. We've got some shorter dated debt. It can go before July 24, but it couldn't go beyond July 24. So it didn't really enable us to do what we wanted to do. And as a result, as Saskia said, you've got your debt floating. So the situation now is that it's business as usual. So that is the latest sort of indication from DIA, is that until we know something better, then it's going to be business as usual. So we carry on as if you have the debt that Three Waters is not going to happen, that you can ignore it. Not ignore it, what's the best way of putting it? That you just carry on as if it's normal debt and you manage it in that way. So as a result, we're changing it's the interest rate risk management policy bands, because what the changes were was this: you had the policy and then it stated any debt that's associated with Three Waters shall be excluded from this provision. And that was the interest rate risk management bands. Is that 3.1 points?
3.1.4.
4.4, yeah. The funding risk management provisions, which relate to your concentration of debt or avoiding a concentration of debt. Again, that excluded debt that was associated with Three Waters. It didn't include liquidity, so it was just because, Madam Chair, that's because of the 110% liquidity from LGFA, that we could not exclude that, because that was a part of the exclusion, because otherwise you would be placing yourself in a disadvantageous position, because you wouldn't be complying with liquidity. So that wasn't excluded from it. So those are the two main provisions that it relates to.
And you'll see there that our proposed changes have got black strike out in the attachment.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify 3.1.5. So you say the risk control is only activated once external debt is 10 mil.
Yeah.
But up above in the paragraph above it says 20. just before the last bit about three waters not being required, so I think that needs to be changed to 10 as well.
I see that the same under use.
1.5.
Compliance with this provision is not required, total external debt is less than 20 million.
Yes, it should say that as well, yeah, just to make it, it's, otherwise you've got two thresholds there.
That's what I mentioned to you yesterday, so.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's just a markup, I think.
So the reason why we had the 10 million is because if
10's fine. It's
Yeah.
in one paragraph. it's
yeah,
different.
oh, yeah. Just explain why there's 10 is that if you have less than 10 million of debt, then you're having to micromanage debt, you know, for what is actually a relatively small amount.
Yeah, so what we're going to be looking to do is lengthen the term of the debt and to also put some hedging in.
And I was talking to Saskia and then Madam Chair just about having an implementation period of 6 months, because we don't want to have this to be passed straight away and then have to do everything on day one, because I mean, it might not be the most appropriate time to do it.
Yeah, so this would be recommended to the council and like finance. Any other questions? Yes? Tim?
Yes, and it's following on from yours because I picked up that 10 and 20, but I'm still a little bit confused. So 3.1.5 is the one that states that these will be activated once we're at 10 million. But it says that these risk controls in 3.1.4 and 3.1.5, so that statement's actually referencing itself, which makes me worry that either it's superfluous, which isn't the worry, or we're actually missing what that 3.1.5 is, because that's circular.
Yeah.
And does that make sense? We may well not do. That was my query, but it did. It's saying what's going to happen in itself.
I think maybe the last sentence of 3.14 covers it, Madam Chair.
Well, exactly, because now you don't have your carve outs for water.
Yeah.
Three
I think we can,
five is superfluous, it could come out.
we can strike through 3.15.
So that goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even better. And I'm just wondering, and I'm sure it's just formatting, but 3.1.4, the actual numbers itself, and 3.1.6 are struck through.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm sure that's just because something else has been struck through on it, has jumped to the side, but it could lead to confusion.
Yeah.
And the only other non-pedantic question I have, no, it's still pedantic because it's me. Page 105 at the top, it says the LGFA, there is no limit set on the amount of funds that are allowed to be borrowed from this agency. But there must be. I mean, our own debt ceiling must limit how much we can borrow.
And 2 million, I suppose it's a strange thing there, but it's.
Yeah.
I mean, LGFA may have no limit.
Well, don't get
I'm just wondering what that means.
That could be, there's no limit on the funds to be borrowed. I think probably that means that it's not as if that you have to only have a certain portion of your debt, but I mean, it is a good point. It probably needs to be clarified that you have to have part of it, you know, from the LGFA and part of it from the bank.
The bank.
But yes, you are governed by the LGFA.
All debt can be borrowed. All debt can be borrowed. from the LGFA. You don't have to spread it around.
I couldn't figure what it meant, but that would make sense. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so it's not a concentration risk. You can, all the debt can be sourced by LGFA.
I just think, and I read it and got a wee fright that I had enough knowledge to know that there had to be a good reason, whereas others who didn't know there had to be a good reason might go eek.
The main provision with the, I mean, LGFA has 3 main covenants in it, and one is debt shall not exceed 175% of revenue. Interest shall not exceed, what is it, 25% of rates and 20% of total revenue. So those are the governing covenants that determine how much debt you can borrow from the LGFA.
Yeah.
Is there any covenants in relation to length of loans? I just noticed the internal loans for 50 years. I guess just for my own understanding is that it must not exceed 50 years, but 50 years is a reasonable amount of time.
Oh, you can't get 50 year loans.
Exactly. So why would an internal not match an external? Just as a question.
Yeah.
Because internal loans
Still paying off the Alexandra town.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, that's obviously at in item 4. Item 4.3.
Can't believe Tony was so cynical then.
I think it's matching, it says here, it's matching sort of the life of the assets. And so it's more of a, just to spread it out and to match the life of the asset. That would be my understanding.
The funding is, we have concentration of funding risk, where we can't have more than a certain percentage of debt maturing in any rolling 12-month period. We don't actually limit the length of the loans. And I suppose that's in there, you know, for the reason that if you did have a specific requirement, you know, to match a loan when it was long dated, so you can do it. But as Madam Chair pointed out, I mean, you can only borrow the maximum from the LGFAs out to April 2037. So that's the, I suppose, the de facto control line.
Yeah, for external, yeah. But internal, because it is just a notional thing. You're not reliant on actually sourcing the money and fixing a rate. It's you can do internally much longer if you want to. And to cover the life of the asset makes sense, because I imagine it's an amortization sort of schedule that happens on those.
I just have one other question, only because you've changed it in all the other places. Under 9.4, you've still got EMCS instead of medium.
Thank you.
Yeah, well spotted, Taylor.
I don't know how I spotted that.
And in 9.3, you referred to the finance manager executing transaction. The group manager BS executes treasury transactions in absence of the finance manager, but the finance manager isn't the person who's authorised.
No, they're not.
To do them. That's
No, good spotting. Yes, no, that's not within the delegations. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Was it the question? Oh, so the reporting, treasury responsibilities at the moment, there's council and there's no responsibility for audit and risk. And when I look at the requirement to report quarterly, in Schedule 2, the quarterly reporting requirements, to me, that is exactly the sort of reporting requirements I would expect to be going to audit and risk.
Agreed.
And certainly, that would be the norm across councils as well, that audit and risk have an oversight of treasury activities. So I don't, it's probably just inserting it in between 9.1 and 9.2. And replicating that bullet point, monitor treasury performance through receipt of appropriate reporting. That fourth bullet point for council, just inserting audit and risk and adding that in there. Yeah. The council gets it as well, do they, Tim? Yeah.
She would now be a good time. Miles has prepared a mock quarterly report that Wayne has to pop up on the screen.
Oh.
If you'd like to see what we're planning to bring, it obviously doesn't have our numbers in it because we've only recently got to the level 20 million, but if the committee likes what you see, we will talk through it.
Sit it together.
Yeah, this one. Oh.
And it's the supplementary style.
Thanks to see.
So this is, just go back to the beginning. So this is just a redacted actually quarterly report from another client. we changed the favour. I'm not sure where that is.
Is that the Antarctic District?
Yes. It's quite
But is that one at the Hooked Lake or the?
I think it is.
Yeah. So we'll change that to the appropriate central Otago one. So every quarter we have a report for each of our council clients. Those of you who don't know Bancorp, we have about 35, 40 local authorities in New Zealand who we act for. And is it worthwhile just saying for 2 or 3 minutes what we do? Please?
Yeah.
So Madam Chair is very familiar with this, with the LGFA and a number of other councils. But we have, so Bancorp's a merchant bank, they're based in Auckland, and we advise clients on treasury. So corporate and institutional clients, we don't advise private clients. We're not AFA qualified, we can't talk to private clients. I mean, if any of you ask me what to do with your mortgage, I'm not allowed to tell you. I can tell you what interest rates are doing, but I can't tell you what we specifically do. I got asked that question yesterday, actually. Local authorities is our biggest sector that we act for, as I said, about 35 to 40 clients, and we advise them on an ongoing basis on managing all their treasury risks. The primary ones are obviously borrowing, because it's such a big part of the sector. So there's the initial obtaining of the funding, and just about all of them, well, all of them now actually are from the LGFA. And there's that involves funding through the scheduled monthly tenders, sometimes outside of the tenders. But as well as the funding, we look at managing the interest rate risk, which is exactly what we've just been talking about, is how much fixed rate debt you should have, how much floating rate debt that you should have. And those are the parameters in 3.1.4, I think. And I'll show you an example of that in a graph. We try and meet clients quarterly on site, and we're also always available, we should be on the front foot and be telling you what you should be doing, but so we try and be proactive, but also, we always welcome feedback from the clients at any time. And sometimes I do get, and I got an email last night, so because there's a tender next week, so I need some money, and I need it by, so we had to tell them, you have to tell them by 12 o'clock today, actually. So sometimes I get some last minute help. I need some money, but you can actually, from the LGFA, I have to say, actually, not being patronising to the chair, that the LGFA has been a fantastic addition, to the local government funding in New Zealand. It's actually held up worldwide as one of the best examples of local government, or a special purpose vehicle set up to fund local government. But it's actually been replicated. It was based on the Nordic model, and I think it's been improved on. You sure?
Yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah. We've done a lot of what they've done, but done stuff they didn't. Haven't done some stuff that they did do that we just didn't think was worth doing. We've been quite focused.
I mean, it probably is. I mean, if you had to fund yourself from the bank, so I'm probably going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I think maybe it's worthwhile saying, if you funded yourself from the bank, it would probably cost you between 0.8 and 1% more.
Wow.
Compared to the LGFA. So those are the sort of savings. And the thing is that it's very, very flexible, and you can get the funding very quickly. As I said, I mean, I had a call yesterday that I need 3.5 million and I need it, and I had to tell them today what they need. So it can be done very quickly. Sometimes within 2 days, sometimes in some reasonably large amounts. So
and to access to much longer term funding if you want to. So, bank funding you could perhaps get out to 5 years, and the council this size wouldn't be going out and issuing bonds and those sorts of things. But with LGFA you can go all out as far as the government stock rates go as well. So and we've got debt of about 17.2 billion, and loans of about 15.6 or so billion out to local authorities. So it's a big book.
I mean, I think the LGFA is actually it's succeeded even beyond its original statement of corporate intent. As far as the size of the lending goes to take up, I think so every council in New Zealand is now, or Chatham Islands haven't.
Chatham Islands haven't. I think we've approved them, but they haven't quite. So yeah, every other council and 3 council controlled organisations as well now. So basically that sector. And there's some councils, Auckland is restricted because they're so big and how much they can borrow from LGFA. So we have a maximum of, they can't represent more than 40% of our book.
So, they still issue under their own name, and a few other councils will issue sort of CP and stuff under their own name, but we lend to every council in New Zealand, basically with the exception of Chatham at the moment, just because I don't need it.
I think, yeah, Auckland is 40% of your book, but then the LGFA can't be 20% more than 20% of their book, I don't think. Is it that way around that it goes?
I'm not sure what the internal controls are, but that's ours, yeah. But
Mark
we're not up there yet.
Mark has asked me to try and get Chatham Islands as a client for you. But, I don't know how much debt. Anyway, so one of the things we do is produce a quarterly report. So if you just go through the next page, please. So there's an economic commentary that produced at the end of every quarter, and there's a generic commentary that goes in there which covers key developments globally. I won't go through that. That's actually historical now, obviously, because so much has happened. So there's the global economic commentary, and then there's the New Zealand economic commentary. Now, these reports, by the way, they are generic to some extent. I mean, the commentary obviously is. A lot of what's in there is generic. Actually, if you go through to the next page, or the next slide, but we can actually take, to what particular clients want. So that graph on the top left is the funding maturity profile, showing the various types of debt. It does show bank debt in there in the grey. What that is the liquidity facility. They don't actually borrow from the bank. They have a bank facility, and it's something that you're working on at the moment, isn't it? Because councils have to maintain 110% liquidity above your borrowing requirements. So in this case, 52.8 million. They have to have a minimum of 5.28 million in liquidity, and that can be term deposits, it can be bonds, but of course normally it's a bank facility, or the LGFA does provide a facility as well.
Yes.
Which actually has never ever been used.
Oh no, there's quite a few that never been drawn. There's quite a few councils that signed up to, and we're limiting it at the moment. So, and it's quite cheap. So don't forget to put that in the loop.
Yeah, so I was talking to Jane the other day, and we just split the last one in 3 million, take it up to 750.
Oh, we kept it down in full. Okay. Oh, there we go.
And then we have, so that's the debt maturity profile. The LGFA funds itself through funds councils through commercial paper, floating rate notes, and fixed rate bonds. And you can have any term from 1 month out to 2037. You can pick any term that you like. We have a statement, of policy compliance down the bottom there. So just ensure that you have got policy. The debt metrics up on the top right there. This one's 52.8 million. It probably narrows it down. I mean, if you really wanted to delve deep into it, you might be able to find out who this is, but it's probably a matter of public record anyway. We just put LGFA debt on it as the same as the total debt. Some councils might just have a bit of legacy debt. That's why we have those two in there. The headroom, which is how much you've got, the undrawn bank facilities, the cash in the bank, that produces a liquidity ratio of 113.2%. You have to have that minimum of 110%. And the cost of funds for this particular council was 3.6% as at 31 March. Any questions on that page?
No, it's going to be helpful, isn't
it? So the next page, so the interest rate risk management bands, if I can just go to the screen, these are the ones that are in the policy. And so you have to have a minimum, in 0 to 2 years, you have to have a minimum of 40% of your debt hedged, the maximum of 100, 2 to 4 is 25 to 80, 4 to 8 is 0 to 60, and your policy compliant here now. Sorry. So this is the 0 to 2, so that's the minimum out to 2 years, and that's the maximum, the red band. The red line, that's 2 to 4, and that's 4 to 8. But this particular, you can achieve fixed rate debt through two particular means. One is an interest rate swap, which is the green here, and the other are fixed rate bonds. And we are looking to put an interest rate swap facility in place for central targeting. And so that's the level of swaps that you've got. That's the level of fixed rate bonds. that green line up there shows how much fixed rate debt you've got on total. But that has to be, well, to be policy compliant, you have to be above that, below that. This dotted line is the actual underlying debt that you've got. So this is, it's a wee bit, it's sort of the uninitiated, it's a wee bit confusing. This funding risk management, which was that previous graph, so where you've got the funding out to, and that's just another way of depicting it. But this is the important one as far as the amount of fixed rate debt and floating rate debt goes. And then this produces, this graph here, this is one that councils really like, all clients really like. Actually, it produces the projected cost of funds for you. So there's your 3.6% at the moment. And this is the projected floating rate. That's excluding the margin. You can see actually that it's predicted to go down quite quickly because Reserve Bank have indicated that, you know, rate hikes that were at the peak of the hiking cycle. Also, it's actually done this was in March before the last monetary policy statement. This is the important one, and this shows the projected cost of funds. This one's actually going up because they've actually got to very low fixed rate debt. I actually picked one that actually had quite a low cost of funds for you. So what we have here is that it takes your fixed rate debt going forward, the amount of fixed rate debt, where you don't have fixed rate debt, it takes the market's projected track for the 90-day bank bill rate and factors it in. So it can produce a cost of funds going out 10 years. So clients find it very useful. It's not perfect in that the only way that that will actually happen in reality is if interest rates exactly follow that trend. Yeah. And the only thing I can tell you is that it won't. Predicted value of future interest rates, I've read about it, it's basically, well, it's not, because it only affects what's currently happening. Now, you might ask, you know, look, with floating rates coming down, the cost of funds is actually going up. That's because they've got some very low fixed rate debt that was taken out, and you know, some of it's below 1%. That will roll off. And then here are the various debt metrics. Is that cost of funds there? So the amount of fixed, the amount of floating, the weighted average of your fixed rate instruments, forward starting cover, so they have forwards, because you can actually fix your debt in advance of actually having the debt, and that's usually done through interest rate swaps. The value of the floating rate, what current floating rate was, and the policy compliance. I think that's it, isn't it? Is that good? Oh, and no, there's one more, sorry, another page. And that was the LGFA borrowing rates for an unrated guarantor, which you are, with CODC is the borrowing rates as at 31 March. One thing we actually are putting in, some other ones, is that we can actually put in a table for what your actual debt is, so you can see it in the table as well.
The other thing that might be worth looking at, and this depends on how far in your journey you are with carbon reporting and setting your sustainability strategy, but there is the carbon action line that availability that is at a slight discount.
2 basis points, 2 or 5, 2, one's 2 and one's 5.
I think it's 2.
Yeah.
But
and the green lines are 5, I think, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's, and all that requires is that a council can commit to what its greenhouse gas emissions are, what its reduction plan is, and you can under it.
What we've already done.
And you can, so I think we've got 5 councils signed up for that. It's quite recent.
Okay.
So it might be worth it, you know, every point counts.
Yeah.
So this is what we're looking to move to once we get the policy change.
Yeah.
Try to form part of the governance in the normal quarterly reporting.
Okay, so it's for us to recommend, I suppose, with those sort of changes, to recommend to council the policy gets as amended is approved. So receive the report and recommend to council the required changes, of which we've made a couple more, to ensure efficiency of operations. So I'll say move, and we'll second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Then the item will come up with a cunning plan.
Oh, things are sort of going in the right way. I mean, after last week, Hopefully we're at the peak of interest rates. And there are actually, because we've got an unusual, there's a situation at the moment, or it's what we call an inverted yield curve, where short-term rates are higher than long-term rates. Normally it's the other way around. The last time we had that, what we call the inverted yield curve was 2008, and it's normally a precursor to a recession. But the good thing is that it actually does produce certain anomalies or this, abnormalities in the shape of the yield curve. We can actually fix debt quite a bit lower than what the current floating rate is at the moment through that. So when we get this interest rate swap dealing moment, it should be quite quick. Then we'll look to actually take advantage of that. Thank you.
And we'll get a report back in September. Yes. Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Alrighty, chair report. I have nothing to report. We don't need to move that, do we? Members report. Does anyone have anything?
I just think it should be reported that the increased risk and difficulties that the government's latest 3 waters plan has put, not just this, but all councils under. We've taken on debt to get work done under a promise that 2024 that debt will be off our books. Now it's not going to.
It's in the rate there.
Yep. And if you look at the decision of Waitaki to go into entity I instead of J, it says, makes it as obvious as the nose on your face that the people of Otago South are going to be really hurt by the decision, which was purely political one, to break entity D into 2 entities. And that's after 3 years of being told this is the way we've got to go. No, it isn't.
And still the current uncertainty on timing and
Massive, just so much uncertainty and the risk that that brings to staff. Yeah. So,
I have nothing to report apart from endorse what His Worship just said. From day one, it's been a moving feast and just has destroyed relationships, tore communities and friends and people apart. And thanks very much for nothing.
Very much.
What 2 minutes?
Okay. Well, look, I think it's increased the risk of the organisation in both financial and stuff.
And uncertainty.
And uncertainty.
Yeah.
So,
okay, well,
you got the general theme, Wayne. You heard me mine before you.
so should like to second that one too?
I'm second that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Those favour? Against? Carried. Cool. Yeah. Date of next meeting, 1 September. We now have the resolution to go public, which is in the papers, but do have an addition to that. Also that Joe Back-Rowden and Sorella Cumming from KPMG remain or available for item 23.2.15 because of their knowledge of the topics we've discussed. They're from KPMG.
I think, just FYI, I think our next audit and risk meeting is actually scheduled for in our calendar for the 30th, the 29th of September, not the 1st.
That is too.
Ooh, right. Yes.
Which one would you like, Wayne?
Best it be 29th.
29th.
Yes, I think the 29th is there.
Okay. Well done.
No worries. And I note my apology for that, Lindsay.
So date of next meeting is the 29th. Okay, dial right, paper wrong. That's the better way around. Okay. Right, so sorry, the resolution to go into non-public, so I will move that. Seconded, thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Correct. A break.
Thank you.
Public, I don't know, I'm sure